Emma, welcome to the Startup Talks podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here at the inaugural Web3 North event, right? The first one ever. And, I'm going to start with a very broad question. Sorry about that. And then we'll go more specific.
All right.
What is your definition of Web3?
Oh, did I give you the politically correct answer? The actual answer I really believe.
I want it raw.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Web3 really is just blockchain. But here's the thing, right? Every few years, the establishment, shall we say, they don't like the term blockchain. So every few years, they change it. So in the beginning, it was Bitcoin. They didn't like Bitcoin, so we changed it to blockchain.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, we changed it to DLT, distributed ledger technologies, right? And then we realized people like things that are non-threatening. So we do Web3. And then we throw in some AI in there, and people are like, "Oh, this is fantastic!"
It's something else entirely that's totally non-threatening.
Exactly.
It's not going to, change our system whatsoever.
Exactly. And if you Google it, you'll literally see I'm correct. That's
Okay.
literally what they did. But people don't think of it that way, right? So now blockchain, so it's totally taken on this entirely new demographic, or like just a way of people thinking of it. But really, it started out as a real blockchain.
Yeah, and I think that's a great segue to my next question, which is, how do you see what we now call Web3, this blanket term?
Mhm.
Really, we're talking about blockchain. How will that disrupt various industries in the next 10 years? I know that's a huge question. You could probably take
Yes.
30 minutes to answer it, but where are the key points where you think it's going to be disruptive?
The key points where I think it's going to be disruptive is, and we'll delve into this one a little bit later, but financial technologies, that's definitely where it's going to be disruptive. And also for food tracing, for traceability, that's where it's really going to be disruptive.
So making sure that
Food is
where
okay.
we say it comes from
Yeah.
and where it's passed through, we have a mark on the ledger, right?
Yeah.
That no one can change.
Exactly, and not just food, to be fair. So FedEx is using it. Other companies are using it. So I just listened to a presentation given by FedEx last week at the Senate in Washington D.C. and they were talking about like how they're using blockchain. It was really, really impressive, and that's really where you're going to see it really start to like shine.
Got it. So supply chains in general,
Yeah.
making them more transparent, essentially,
100%.
is where okay, so that's cool. And for those who don't know you, perhaps some of my listeners haven't heard of you yet.
A lot of people have.
How did you get started in this whole industry? I know you've got a lot going on, but if you can just walk us through the journey.
I came from banking. I did banking here in Ottawa. And then I moved to Toronto. And then from there to I was living everywhere, and New York, and then Delaware, and doing all these things. And then, I was doing it for like 15 years and I got bored. And so I said to my friend one day, I am thinking about moving into financial technologies. And she said, well, what about Bitcoin? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, what about blockchain? I'm like, it's still Greek to me. What are you talking about? This is 2016.
Yeah.
And she said, well, why don't you come to a conference that we're having? And I'm like, okay. So I went to the conference. They had it at Mars Innovation Center in Toronto's beautiful building. Not as beautiful as this one, but pretty nice.
It's pretty rad where we are.
Yeah. And when I went to that conference, EY was there, PwC was there, and Homeland Security was there. And I thought, if Homeland Security is here, maybe I should be taking...
There's something.
Yeah, maybe I should be paying attention to it. There were no bankers, though. And
Okay.
I know why.
Okay.
But then, and then I heard all these great things, and I thought, I love this. And the guys are so great here. I can't go back to banking. And I just dove right in.
Okay.
And my family thought I was nuts. And I just did it full time. I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never
It's a leap
ran
of
a
faith.
business. Yeah, completely.
Right? Different industry, emerging, still has probably a negative kind of moniker from the outside world, right?
True, but everybody was so smart. I was like, I'll be broke, but at least I'll be happy, because at the time, like, Bitcoin was $400.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll be broke, but at least I'll be happy. And then a year and a half later, I know, right? When
Those maxis are pretty sharp, eh?
when Bitcoin went to 20,000, everybody's like, oh my God, you're smart. And then when it went to 60, they're like, you're a genius.
No, Bitcoiners are truly some of the... I think they have an interesting combination of they're intelligent, but most of all, they are contrarian, right? They're contrarian, and they are disagreeable in a way where they challenge conventional wisdom.
100%.
Right?
100%. It takes a lot to keep doing what you're doing in the face of a lot of criticism. Everyone's against you. And it takes a lot to
through the
wake up
bear
every
markets.
day. Yeah. And then you just keep going. You just
Yeah.
keep going. Yeah. They definitely are contrarian. You're right.
Yeah. And that means you're contrarian. I'm going to ask
You're
you,
not wrong.
I'm going to ask you a last question.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're a woman.
Mhm.
You're in a male-dominated space. Tech
Mm.
usually is. Web3 probably is more because we're still early.
Mhm.
How do you navigate that? And, is it a challenge? And what message do you have for women, girls who want to get into the space?
So when I first started, and I will talk about this famous picture I have. I went to Mars for, they had a meetup, and it was 495 men and 5 women, and I was one of them. And I was
Yes.
like, oh my god,
A
right?
small minority.
Completely small. I was like the only black woman for like miles. I was the only black person for miles.
Right.
And but these guys didn't care who I was as long as I had ideas and I could help them. They were like, we don't care what you do, who you are, what you look like, just help us. And so whenever I go to a conference, guaranteed there's a Canadian somewhere there, and guaranteed there's somebody there from Toronto. And so they've always been very welcoming and arms are open. And so it's been fairly easy for me because I've been in the space for so long.
Mhm.
It's a little bit harder for people now because everyone's more guarded, right?
Yep.
Back then they were just like, help us. Now they're like, what do you want? Do you want to get rich? Is that why you're here?
Yeah.
But invariably people are willing to help you. You just kind of have to demonstrate that you really are in it for the right reasons. That's what I found.
You have to
I'm
be a
not saying
contributor at the early stages,
Yeah.
right?
I'm not saying it's easy, but if it was easy, everybody would do it, right? And it's not easy, but I think it's worth it.
You clearly made a very contrarian and right bet. So congrats on that. And
Thank you.
Emma Todd, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you had me. I am absolutely in love with this setup, and best of luck with everything you're doing.
Thank you very much. We'll
Thank
talk
you.
later.
Yes.
Cheers.
Bye.